I sat in the sunroom of my lakefront home in Seattle, the afternoon light catching the surface of the water like scattered diamonds. The porcelain teacup was warm in my hands, Earl Grey, 1 sugar, exactly the way I had taken it for 43 years. Julian and Serena walked in without knocking. They never knocked anymore. Julian, my only son, 42 years old, still carried himself like the boy who once believed the world owed him something. Serena followed half a step behind, her Lululemon set perfectly pressed, hair swept into that effortless influencer wave. She smiled first. Always did. "Mom," Julian said, voice smooth as the polished oak table between us. "We need to talk about the trust." I set the teacup down. The faint clink sounded louder than it should have. Serena slid into the chair across from me, crossing her legs. "We already moved the entire trust fund yesterday." The words landed flat. No drama, no raised voices, just fact. I felt the air leave the room. Julian continued as if discussing the weather. "The attorney said you're mentally incompetent anyway. It's for your own good, really. At 68, these things happen. We didn't want some scam artist to get to you first." Serena reached over and patted my hand. Her nails were fresh, French tip, $180 at the salon I used to pay for. "We only invited the necessary people to sign. Lila helped draft everything, very clean." "Very legal." My throat tightened, but I kept my face still. I had practiced that stillness for years. Through my husband's long illness, through the quiet funerals, through every time they asked for just a little more, and I gave it without question. "How much?" I asked. My voice came out even, almost curious. Julian shrugged. 4.7 million. What was left after the usual disbursements. Serena added brightly, "We kept $12,400 in your personal account. Enough for monthly expenses. Groceries, utilities, that sort of thing. We're being generous." I looked at her. Really looked. The woman I had once called daughter. The one whose wedding I paid $280,000 for. The one whose first home down payment came from me. 1.2 million. Cash. She met my eyes for half a second, then glanced at the lake view as if it already belonged to her. I stood up slowly. My knees protested, but I ignored them. "I see." Julian smiled, the same smile he used when he was 6 and wanted the last cookie. "We'll handle everything from now on. No more stress for you. Serena's already planning to redecorate the West Wing, make it more modern." Serena laughed softly. "You won't even notice the changes, Mom. Promise." I walked to the sideboard where my laptop waited. They watched me. I could feel their eyes on my back, waiting for tears, for shouting, for the scene they had probably rehearsed. I opened the laptop. The banking portal loaded. Trust fund account, Eleanor M. Voss. Balance, $12,400.18. The numbers stared back at me, cold and final. My hand froze on the mouse. I had built that trust with my husband over decades. Every investment decision, every late night reviewing statements, every sacrifice of my own career so he could focus on his. After he died, I kept it intact, for them. Always for them. And now it was gone. Moved with forged authority papers. Signed by my own daughter, the lawyer who knew exactly which lines to blur. Serena's voice floated over. "See? It's already done. No need to make this difficult." Julian added, "We love you, Mom. This is protection." I closed the laptop with a soft click. The sound echoed in the sunroom like a judge's gavel. I turned to face them both. My expression didn't change, not one muscle. "Thank you for letting me know," I said quietly. Julian blinked. Serena's perfect smile faltered for the briefest moment. I walked past them toward the hallway that led to my bedroom. My steps were measured, 86 steps exactly. I had counted them many times when sleep wouldn't come. Behind me, I heard Serena whisper, "She took it better than I expected." Julian chuckled. "Told you, she's getting slow." Good thing we acted fast. I closed my bedroom door. The lock clicked into place. Only then did I allow myself one long, slow breath. My reflection in the antique mirror looked back at me. 68 years old, silver hair pulled into a neat chignon, eyes clear, hands steady. I opened the bottom drawer of my husband's old desk, the one they never touched because it was just old papers. Inside lay the original trust documents, the ones with the ironclad clauses he had insisted on, the ones that mentioned financial elder abuse before the term was even common. I sat down at the small writing table by the window. The lake glittered outside, indifferent to everything that had just happened inside these walls. I picked up the secure phone I kept charged for emergencies, the one with the private line my husband had set up years ago. I dialed a number I had memorized but never used. It rang twice. A calm male voice answered. "Marcus Hale." I spoke softly, clearly. "Marcus, it's Eleanor Voss. They took the trust fund. All of it. Yesterday." A pause. Then, professional, measured. "I'll need the account numbers and any paperwork they showed you. We start tonight." I looked at the closed door. On the other side of it, my son and his wife were probably already opening a bottle of the 2015 Cabernet I had cellared for special occasions. They thought they had won. They thought I was finished. I whispered into the phone, "Send me the first set of forms. I'm ready." Marcus replied, "Understood. And Eleanor, breathe. This is going to take time, but we will take it all back. With interest." I ended the call. My hands were still perfectly steady. I opened my laptop again and began saving every bank statement I could access before they changed the passwords. Page after page, transaction after transaction. Serena's shopping sprees in New York, Julian's failed startup investments, the private jet charges, the $87,000 on Serena's Centurion Card last quarter alone. All of it funneled through accounts they controlled. I worked until the sun dipped behind the mountains and the lake turned the color of steel. Only when the room grew dark did I stop. I stood up, walked to the window, and looked out at the water. Somewhere in the distance, a boat light blinked once, then disappeared. I smiled. Small, private, the kind of smile no one else would ever see. Because what they didn't know, what they could never understand, was that I had spent 8 quiet years after my husband's death preparing for the day they would try to bury me while I was still breathing. And that day had finally arrived. I closed the curtains. Tomorrow, the real work would begin. But tonight, I slept better than I had in months. The next morning, the lake was gray and still, like it knew something had shifted inside the house. I made my coffee black, no sugar this time. The bitterness felt right. I carried the mug to the small desk in my bedroom and opened the laptop again. The password still worked, for now. I started with the oldest statements I could pull, 6 months back, then 7, then 8. Line by line, transaction by transaction. My eyes moved like a scanner, no emotion, just data. There it was. Centurion Card, Eleanor M. Voss. Last 6 months, $87,423.67 charged to content creation trips. Private jet to Aspen for a mindful branding retreat, $19,800. 5 nights at the Aman in Tokyo, $28,400. Personal shopper in Milan, $11,200. And the caption Serena had posted on her private stories, the ones she forgot I could still see, read, "Creating the life we deserve, funded by wisdom." Wisdom. That was what they called my money now. I saved every PDF. I renamed the folder Evidence_1. Then I kept going. The trust fund transfers were worse. Julian had pulled $340,000 in wire transfers to an account in the Caymans, labeled Business Development, the business that had failed 3 times already. I closed the laptop at 10:30. My neck ached, but my mind felt sharper than it had in years. A soft knock sounded on the door. Julian didn't wait for an answer. He stepped inside, carrying a manila folder. Serena trailed him, phone in hand, filming a quick reel of the lake view like she already owned the copyright. "Morning, Mom," Julian said. He placed the folder on the desk. "We need you to sign this today." I didn't touch it. "What is it?" "Deed transfer," he answered. "The house. Property taxes are killing us. 1.8 million a year now. You're on a fixed income. It makes sense to put the title in our names. We'll cover everything going forward." Serena smiled that practice smile. "It's just paperwork, Eleanor. You won't feel a thing, and we'll still let you stay in the guest suite for as long as you need." I looked at the folder, then at them. The guest suite. In the house I had paid cash for. The house my husband and I had designed together. Every window placed to catch the morning light exactly right. I picked up a pen. For a moment, their faces relaxed. I set the pen down again. "I'll think about it." Julian's jaw tightened. "Mom, we're trying to protect you. The market's volatile. If something happens to you." "If something happens to me," I cut in quietly, "the trust documents have very specific instructions. You know that." Serena laughed once, light and brittle. "Those old papers. Honey, Lila already reviewed them. They're outdated." "We updated everything yesterday, remember?" I remembered. I remembered the exact timestamp on the email that had emptied my accounts. I stood up. I said, "I'll think about it." Julian opened his mouth, then closed it. He picked up the folder. "Fine, but don't take too long. The tax bill comes due in 30 days. They left. The door shut with a soft click that felt louder than any slam. I waited 30 seconds. Then I walked to the window and watched them cross the lawn toward the boathouse. Serena was already on her phone, gesturing wildly. Julian's shoulders were hunched. Good. I pulled the secure phone from the drawer, dialed Marcus Hale's direct line. It rang once, twice, 3 times. "Marcus Hale." His voice was calm, the same steady baritone I remembered from the reading of my husband's will. "It's Eleanor," I said. "They want the house now, and I found the Centurion charges, 87,000 in 6 months. A pause. I heard papers shifting on his end. "I expected this. Eleanor, I reviewed the documents they filed yesterday. The power of attorney they used was forged. Your signature is close, but the notary stamp is from a firm that closed 2 years ago." The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. I sat down slowly. Forged. "Clean enough to fool a bank clerk on a Friday afternoon," Marcus continued, "but not clean enough for court. I've already pulled the original trust file. There's a clause your husband buried deep. Any attempt to circumvent the successor trustee triggers an automatic audit and reversal, with penalties." I looked out at the lake again. A single sailboat drifted past, white against the grey. "Marcus," I said, voice low, "how long until we can move?" He didn't hesitate. "I can file the first notice of dispute by close of business today. But Eleanor, this will get ugly before it gets clean. They'll fight. They'll try to paint you as unstable. You need to stay quiet. Stay in that house. Document everything. And whatever you do, do not sign a single page they put in front of you." I exhaled once. "Understood." He added, softer now, "You're not alone in this. Your husband made sure of that." I ended the call. The phone felt warm in my palm, like a promise. I opened a new folder on the laptop, labeled it Evidence_2. Inside, I dropped the recording I had made of yesterday's conversation, the one I had started the moment they walked into the sunroom. Their voices were crystal clear. "You're mentally incompetent anyway. It's for your own good." I saved it. Then I saved the bank statements. Then the deed request. Piece by piece, the file grew. Outside, the sailboat disappeared around the point. I stood up and walked to the kitchen. I made myself another coffee. Black again. The bitterness no longer felt like punishment. It felt like fuel. Because Marcus had just handed me the first real weapon, and I was only getting started. That evening, the dining room smelled of rosemary and seared salmon. Serena had set the table herself. White linen, the good silver, candles flickering even though the sun had not yet fully set over the lake. 4 place settings. She knew Lila was coming. I arrived last, wearing the same gray cashmere sweater I had worn all day. No jewelry, no makeup. Just the thin gold watch my husband gave me on our 30th anniversary. The one with the hidden recorder he had installed the year before he died. A precaution, he had called it, for people who smile too much. Lila was already seated. My daughter, 39, sharp suit, sharper eyes. She had a thick folder beside her plate, edges aligned like a blade. "Mom," Julian said, pulling out my chair, "we thought a family meeting would be nice. No outsiders, just us." Serena poured wine I had paid for. "We're worried, Eleanor. Really worried." I sat. The chair felt colder than usual. Lila opened the folder without preamble. "We've spoken to a geriatric specialist, Dr. Langford. He reviewed the bank statements you've been obsessing over. The confusion with the trust fund. The way you've been forgetting simple things." I picked up my water glass. My hand did not shake. "I see." Julian leaned forward. "Early dementia, Mom. It explains everything. The paranoia, the refusal to sign the deed. It's not your fault. It's the disease." Serena reached across and touched my wrist. Her fingers were warm. Mine stayed ice. "We love you. That's why we're doing this. We want to protect you before it gets worse." Lila slid the first page toward me. "Medical power of attorney. It simply lets us make health decisions if you become incapacitated. Standard procedure. I drafted it myself. Very clean." I looked at the paper. Paragraph after paragraph of legalese. At the bottom, a line for my signature. Dated today. Julian poured himself more wine. "We already scheduled the mental incompetence evaluation for next week. Dr. Langford will testify. Once the court agrees, we become your legal guardians. It's the safest route. No more stress for you." Serena smiled, that influencer smile, soft and concerned. "Think of it as us taking the wheel. You've driven long enough, Eleanor. Let us handle the bills, the house, the accounts. You can finally rest." I scanned the document. Every clause transferred control. Health, finances, living arrangements. They had even included a clause for selling assets in my best interest. Lila tapped the page. "Sign here, Mom. And here. Initial there. It's painless." The room was quiet, except for the low hum of the lake breeze through the open terrace doors. No one raised their voice. No one had to. The pressure sat in the air like humidity before a storm. I picked up the pen they had placed beside the paper. Heavy, black, expensive. The kind Serena liked to post about. Julian watched my face. "This is for your own good. You'll thank us later." Serena added, "We've already spoken to the bank. Once the POA is active, they'll release the remaining $12,000 without questions. Groceries, utilities, everything covered. You won't have to worry about a single cent again." I signed where they pointed. First line. Second. Initials. Under the table, my left hand moved to the watch on my right wrist. My thumb found the tiny recessed button my husband had shown me only once. I pressed it. The red light blinked once. Silent. Invisible to them. Lila exhaled, satisfied. "Perfect. We'll file this with the court tomorrow morning." The incompetence petition goes in at the same time. Dr. Langford's report is already prepared. Julian raised his glass. To family looking out for family. Serena clinked hers against his. To new beginnings. I set the pen down. The signature looked exactly like mine. Because it was. I looked at each of them in turn. Lila, professional and detached. Julian, already calculating how fast he could list the house. Serena, already planning the redecoration photos for her feed. None of them noticed the watch. None of them noticed the faint click when I stopped the recording 2 minutes later under the table while they discussed tomorrow's schedule. I folded my napkin. Dinner was lovely. Serena beamed. See, she's already more relaxed. I stood up slowly. 86 steps back to my bedroom again. I counted them. Behind me, their voices drifted, low and pleased. Phase 1 complete, Lila said. Phase 2 will be even smoother, Julian replied. I closed my bedroom door. The lock clicked. I sat at the writing desk and opened the laptop. The file evidence_3 waited. I transferred the recording. The voices came through crystal clear. Early dementia. We've already spoken to the bank. Sign here, Mum. I saved it. Then I sent a single encrypted email to Marcus Hale. Subject line, Medical POA, recorded. Attachment, the new audio file. My hands were steady. Outside, the last light left the lake. The water turned black and mirror still. They thought they had me cornered. They thought the signature had sealed it. But the red light had blinked once, and that single blink was going to burn their entire plan to the ground. I closed the laptop. Tomorrow the real storm would begin. But tonight I slept with the watch still on my wrist, its tiny red light now dark and waiting. The email arrived at 7:12 a.m. sharp. Subject line, monthly disbursement suspended. I opened it at the kitchen island, coffee untouched beside me. The bank's automated notice was blunt. Effective immediately, the $8,500 automatic transfer from the trust account had been halted. Reason listed, successor trustee directive under active POA. My thumb hovered over the screen for 3 full seconds. Then I set the phone down. They had moved faster than I expected. Julian walked in at 7:30, still in yesterday's shirt, hair uncombed. Serena followed with her usual green smoothie, phone already filming the lake for another morning gratitude reel. Morning, Mom, Julian said. He poured himself orange juice from the fridge I stocked. You saw the email? I nodded once. Serena leaned against the counter. It's temporary, just until the court finalizes the guardianship. Dr. Langford's report is due any day now. Once you're officially under our care, we'll set up a proper allowance, something reasonable. Reasonable, I repeated. My voice stayed flat. Julian shrugged. $8,500 a month was generous when the trust was flush. Now, we have to be smart. The house alone eats $19,000 in taxes and maintenance every 30 days. We're covering it. Serena took a sip of her smoothie. And honestly, Eleanor, you don't need that much anymore. Groceries for one person? A few hundred at most. We'll handle the rest. I looked at her. The woman whose last content creation trip had burned $87,000 of my money. She smiled back, all concern. It's for your own good. Less stress means slower progression of the dementia. That's what the doctor said. I didn't answer. I simply walked to the mail tray by the front door and picked up the stack of envelopes that had arrived yesterday. Utility bills, credit card statements from accounts I still technically controlled, old invoices from the years I had paid for everything. I carried them back to my bedroom without another word. For the next 4 hours, I sat at the writing desk and sorted. One pile for Serena's charges, another for Julian's wire transfers, a third for every check I had written to cover their mortgage, their cars, their vacations. $42,000 to renovate their kitchen 2 years ago. $19,500 for Lila's bar exam celebration in Napa. $280,000 for the wedding that had featured a custom ice sculpture and a string quartet flown in from New York. I scanned each one, dated it, noted the account it cleared from. The folder evidence_4 grew thicker on my laptop. At noon, Serena knocked once and entered without waiting. She held up her phone.
"Look what we're planning, Mom. A little thank you trip to Europe. Paris, then Lake Como. Just Julian and me. To celebrate getting everything stabilized."
She swiped. The private Instagram story filled the screen. Caption: "Finally breathing. Europe funded by smart savings from mother-in-law era. Grateful for the reset." She had posted it to the close friends list. The one she forgot included my secondary account, the one I used to monitor what they thought I couldn't see. I studied the photo. Her in the boathouse, wearing the cashmere coat I bought her last Christmas. $3,200. "Very nice," I said. Serena beamed. "We leave in 10 days. Once the court hearing is done, of course. You'll be fine here. We'll have a caregiver lined up by then. Very professional. You won't even notice we're gone." She left the door open behind her. I waited until her footsteps faded down the hall. Then I opened the laptop and saved a screenshot of the story, timestamp included. The folder now held 117 separate documents. Outside, the lake remained calm. Inside, something colder than the water settled in my chest. Not anger. Not yet. Just the slow, precise turning of gears. That night I ate alone in my room. A simple sandwich. No wine, no ceremony. At 11, I reviewed the recordings again. The watch on my wrist had captured every word from the family dinner. Lila's crisp legal tone, Julian's casual threats, Serena's honeyed concern. I backed everything up to an encrypted drive Marcus had overnighted to a P.O. box I still controlled. Midnight came and went. At 1:47 a.m., I heard the soft scrape of paper against carpet. I stayed in bed another 13 minutes. Let them think I was asleep. Then I rose, crossed the room in bare feet, and looked down. A single envelope lay just inside the door, plain white, no stamp, hand-delivered. I picked it up. Inside was a single sheet. Eviction notice, private residence, addressed to me, demanding I vacate the premises within 30 days, citing failure to contribute to household expenses and court-appointed guardianship pending. Signed by Julian Voss as acting trustee, notarized yesterday. My eyes moved over the legalese. Every clause designed to strip me of the last thing I owned outright. I read it twice. Then I folded the paper neatly and placed it on the desk beside the growing evidence file. For the first time in weeks, the corners of my mouth lifted. A small smile. Private. Sharp. They had just handed me the final piece. Because an internal eviction notice in a house I still held the original deed to was not protection. It was proof. I sat down at the desk, opened a new document, and began drafting the exact reply Marcus would file first thing tomorrow. The lake outside my window reflected the moon like a blade. They thought they were clearing the board. They had no idea the game had only just begun. The rain started just after dawn, soft and steady, the kind that blurred the lake into a sheet of brushed steel. I slipped on a simple black coat, the one with the deep pockets, and drove the 10 minutes to the small cafe tucked against the water's edge. No one followed me. They were still asleep in the West Wing, dreaming of Europe and guardianship papers. Marcus Hale was already there. Corner table, back to the wall, laptop open, 2 coffees waiting. He looked exactly as he had 8 years ago at the will reading. Silver hair, wire-rimmed glasses, the quiet authority of a man who had spent his life protecting other people's money from their own children. "Eleanor," he said, standing briefly. No hug, no small talk, just the facts. I sat. The coffee was hot and black. Perfect. He slid a legal pad across the table. "We move today. I've reviewed everything you sent. The forged power of attorney, the medical POA you signed under duress, The internal eviction notice. It's textbook financial elder abuse. We filed the countersuit this afternoon. I wrapped my hands around the mug.
How strong? Strong enough to freeze their accounts before they board that plane to Paris. He tapped the laptop. I pulled the full transaction history from the trust. Serena wired $340,000 to an offshore account in the Caymans last month.
Labeled consulting fees. The consulting firm doesn't exist. It's a shell. Her shell. 340,000. The number landed like a stone in still water. Marcus continued, voice low and even. Julian authorized it as successor trustee. Your daughter Lila notarized the paperwork. All three of them, coordinated. We have the wire confirmations, the bank statements, the timestamps, every cent traceable. I exhaled once. They told me it was for business development. Marcus's smile was thin. It was their business. We're preparing the complaint. Financial elder abuse, breach of fiduciary duty, fraud on the trust. We'll ask the court for an immediate temporary restraining order on all assets, including the house. They don't sell, they don't transfer, they don't touch another dime until this is litigated. I looked out at the lake. The rain drew silver lines down the window. And the mental incompetence petition? Dead on arrival. He opened a folder. The recording from the dinner is gold, crystal clear. Their own voices admitting they scheduled the evaluation before you ever saw a doctor. Dr. Langford's report will be challenged as biased. I've already lined up our own expert. Independent. Expensive, but worth it. He slid the thick folder across the table. The first page was a bank wire confirmation. Date, 3 weeks ago. Amount, $340,000. Beneficiary, Harrington Consulting Limited, Grand Cayman. Authorized by Julian Voss, trustee. Notarized by Lila Voss, Esquire. My blood ran cold. Not from fear, from something sharper. Clarity. Marcus watched me. That's the one that will bury them. The judge will see it as blatant self-dealing. We also have the Centurion Card statements. 87,000 in 6 months. Private jets, designer shopping, all charged to your name while they claimed you were too incompetent to manage your own affairs. I closed the folder. What do I do now? Stay in the house. Do not sign anything else. Do not engage. If they push, record it. I'll have the restraining order papers served by tomorrow evening. They'll be notified they cannot evict you, cannot restrict your access to the trust, and cannot leave the jurisdiction until the hearing. I nodded once. And the house? Still yours on the original deed. Their eviction notice is worthless. We'll counterfile for trespass if they try to change the locks. The cafe door opened behind us. A couple hurried in from the rain. Marcus waited until they were seated before he spoke again. One more thing. Julian called my office yesterday. He threatened to cut you off completely if you don't cooperate. No contact, no support. He said, and I quote, "She's dead to us if she fights this." I looked at Marcus. My face didn't change. He said that to my attorney? Marcus nodded. I recorded the call. Standard procedure. I set my coffee down. The mug made a soft click against the saucer. Let him threaten. Outside, the rain picked up. It drummed against the roof like steady footsteps marching toward a courtroom. Marcus slid a single sheet across the table. This is the draft complaint. Read it tonight. If you approve, I file at 4 p.m. The clerk will stamp it, and by tomorrow morning, your children will know the game has changed. I scanned the first paragraph. The language was precise, surgical. Financial elder abuse. Demand for full restitution. Request for attorney fees and punitive damages. I signed at the bottom. My signature was steady. Marcus took the page back. Good. Now go home. Act normal. They're watching you. I stood. The coat felt heavier now. Weighed down with the folder, I slipped into the deep inner pocket. Thank you, Marcus. He didn't smile. He never did when money was involved. This is what your husband paid me to do, Eleanor. Protect what's yours. I walked out into the rain. The drops hit my face, cold and clean. By the time I reached the car, my phone buzzed. Julian. I let it ring twice before answering.
Mom,
He said, voice tight.
we need to talk. Now. Come back to the house. If you don't start cooperating, we're done. No more contact, no more money, nothing.
I started the engine. The wipers swept across the windshield in perfect rhythm. Julian, I said quietly, I'm on my way. I ended the call. The folder sat on the passenger seat like a loaded gun. They thought they were cutting me off. They had no idea I was about to cut the ground out from under them. I drove home through the rain, the lake a gray blur beside me. The real storm was just beginning. The rain had slowed to a drizzle by the time I pulled into the driveway. The house lights glowed warm through the windows, too warm. I killed the engine and sat for 10 seconds, folder still heavy in my lap. Then I walked inside. Balloons bobbed in the foyer, silver and white. A banner stretched across the dining room arch. Happy birthday, Eleanor. It wasn't my birthday, not for another 4 months. Julian stepped out from the kitchen, holding a small cake with one candle already lit. Serena stood beside him, phone up, filming. Lila leaned against the sideboard, arms crossed, wearing the same sharp suit from the other night. Surprise, Julian said, voice bright. We wanted to celebrate you, Mom, before things get official. Serena lowered the phone just enough to smile. Turn 69 in style. Even if it's a few months early. We thought it would be nice, family only. I set my bag down. The folder inside it pressed against my hip like a secret. I see. Lila gestured to the table. Cake first, then we have a little appointment lined up. Dr. Langford agreed to do the evaluation today instead of next week. He's waiting at his office. Very accommodating. Julian cut a slice and slid it onto a plate. It's just a formality, cognitive test, memory questions. You'll pass with flying colors. Then the court hears the petition tomorrow and we can all move forward. No more tension. Serena handed me the plate. Her nails clicked against the china. We booked the Europe trip for right after. First class. We'll send you photos every day. You'll love knowing we're finally relaxing. I took the plate but didn't sit. The candle flame flickered. $89 for that cake. I recognized the bakery label. My credit card, of course. Eat, Julian urged. Then we'll drive you over. Dr. Langford's office is only 20 minutes away. He specializes in these cases. Very discreet. I looked at each of them. Julian's eyes darted to the folder in my bag. Serena kept the phone angled toward me, still recording. Lila checked her watch, impatient. I picked up the fork. One bite. The frosting tasted like sugar and nothing else.
Ready? Serena asked, already reaching for her keys.
I set the plate down. One moment. I walked to the hallway powder room and locked the door. My hands moved fast. Phone out, encrypted app open. I attached the entire evidence folder, every statement, every recording, every wire transfer screenshot. 4.7 million, 340,000 offshore, 87,000 on the Centurion Card, the forged POA, the eviction notice. I typed one line to Marcus. Filing approved. All files attached. They are taking me to the doctor now. Send the restraining order as soon as you can. Send. The blue checkmark appeared. Delivered. I deleted the app history, washed my hands, and stepped back out. Everything okay? Julian asked. Fine, I said. The drive was quiet. Serena chattered about Paris cafes. Julian nodded along. Lila rode in the back with me, folder of her own on her lap, more papers for the doctor to sign. Dr. Langford's office sat in a sleek medical building overlooking the lake. Private entrance, no waiting room. He greeted us in a white coat, smile practiced and cool. Mrs. Voss, he said, shaking my hand, let's get you comfortable. This won't take long. They led me into a small exam room. Julian and Serena waited outside, but the door stayed cracked. Lila sat in the corner, watching. The doctor started simple. Can you tell me today's date? I answered correctly. Count backwards from 100 by sevens. I did. 100, 93, 86, 79, 72, 65, 58, 51, 44, 37, 30, 23, 16, 9, 2. Perfect. He nodded, jotting notes. Now, name 3 objects I showed you earlier. I listed them. Lila shifted in her chair. Julian's voice drifted through the crack in the door. She's been forgetting where she puts things, hiding papers, paranoid about money she doesn't even understand anymore. Serena added, soft, We just want her safe. The trust fund is better in our hands. We'll use it responsibly. Travel, investments, the life she always wanted us to have. The doctor's pen scratched faster. I kept my face blank. Under the table, my thumb pressed the watch button again. Recording. He asked a few more questions. I answered every one without hesitation. Finally, he closed his notebook. Well, Mrs. Voss, you performed exceptionally well. I'll write the report tonight. I stood. Thank you. I walked out of the room. Julian and Serena were already smiling, hugging each other like they had won. But the receptionist at the front desk stopped me with a quiet touch on my arm. Mrs. Voss, there's a courier here for you. He says it's urgent legal documents. I turned. A man in a plain jacket stood by the door, envelope in hand. He handed it to me directly. Eleanor Voss, from the office of Marcus Hale, Esquire. Julian's smile froze. Serena's phone slipped an inch in her hand. I opened the envelope right there, under the bright office lights. Temporary restraining order. Signed by the judge 30 minutes ago. All assets frozen. No eviction, no guardianship proceedings until the full hearing. Immediate return of any misappropriated trust funds pending audit. My eyes scanned the bottom line. Violations subject to contempt charges and full restitution plus penalties. I folded the paper once and looked at my son and his wife. Their faces said everything. The doctor stepped out behind me, report in hand, but it no longer mattered. What happened when I left that room would end their little game. The courthouse in downtown Seattle smelled of polished wood and old paper. Rain streaked the tall windows of courtroom 4B. I sat at the defense table in a simple navy suit, the one I hadn't worn since my husband's funeral. Marcus Hale sat beside me, calm as still water. No notes, no nerves, just the thick binder of evidence resting between us like a loaded vault. Julian and Serena took the plaintiff's side. Lila sat behind them in the gallery, legs crossed, legal pad ready. They had filed the mental incompetence lawsuit anyway. The temporary restraining order had only slowed them down. Now they wanted the judge to make it permanent, freeze every remaining asset, appoint them as guardians, and let them control what little was left of the trust. The bailiff called the case. Voss versus Voss. Petition for guardianship and declaration of mental incompetence. Judge Harlan, a woman in her late 50s with sharp eyes behind wire glasses, looked over the top of her files. Counsel, proceed. Lila stood first. Her voice was crisp, professional. Your Honor, my clients have acted in good faith. Eleanor Voss, 68, has shown clear signs of cognitive decline. She signed a medical power of attorney voluntarily. She has been unable to manage her finances, leading to erratic behavior and unfounded accusations. We present bank statements showing her fixation on minor transactions while ignoring the larger picture. We ask the court to appoint Julian and Serena Voss as full guardians and to freeze the remaining trust assets for her protection. She slid a stack of papers across. The judge glanced at them. Serena dabbed at dry eyes with a tissue. Julian sat tall, the picture of a concerned son. We only want what's best for Mom, he said when the judge asked if he wished to speak.
She's paranoid. She thinks we stole from her. The trust had $4.7 million. We moved it to protect it.
That's all. The judge turned to me. Mrs. Voss, do you wish to address the court? I stood slowly. My hands stayed at my sides.
No, Your Honor. My attorney will speak for me.
Marcus rose. He didn't raise his voice. He simply opened the binder.
Your Honor,
The petitioners have filed under false pretenses. This is not protection. This is financial elder abuse. We have irrefutable evidence. He handed the clerk a set of documents. The first was the original trust agreement, highlighted in yellow. Clause 14b, Marcus said.
any attempt by successor trustees to circumvent the terms triggers automatic reversal and penalties. They forged the power of attorney. The notary stamp is from a firm closed for 2 years. We have the bank's own security footage time-stamped at the moment they presented it.
The judge's eyebrows lifted a fraction. Marcus continued. Second, the Centurion Card charges. $87,423.67 in 6 months. Private jets, designer trips, all charged to Mrs. Voss while petitioners claim she was incompetent. We have the statements. We have the private Instagram posts where Serena Voss bragged about smart savings from mother-in-law era. Serena's face went pale under her makeup. Marcus didn't pause. Third, the offshore wire. $340,000 to Harrington Consulting Limited in the Caymans, a shell company owned by Serena Voss, authorized by Julian Voss as trustee and notarized by Lila Voss, who is also counsel for the petitioners.
Conflict of interest doesn't begin to cover it.
He placed the wire confirmation on the bench. The judge picked it up. Her eyes moved down the page. Fourth, Marcus said, voice still quiet. The internal eviction notice slid under Mrs. Voss's bedroom door at 1:47 a.m. in the house she owns outright. They tried to evict her from her own home while claiming to protect her. Julian shifted in his chair. Serena's hand found his under the table. Marcus placed the final page down. And the recording from the family dinner. Their own voices admitting they scheduled the incompetence evaluation before Mrs. Voss ever saw a doctor. Crystal clear. No duress on her part, only on theirs. The courtroom was silent, except for the rain against the glass. Judge Harlan looked at the evidence stack, then at Julian and Serena, then back to Marcus. She leaned forward. Mr. Hale, you've given me a great deal to consider. But before I rule on the temporary orders, I want to hear from the petitioners on these specific... Marcus stood a little straighter. His next 3 words cut through the air like a blade. Check the timestamps. The judge paused mid-sentence. The courtroom went dead quiet. Julian's face drained of color. Serena's mouth opened, then closed. Lila's legal pad slipped from her lap and hit the floor with a soft thud. Marcus didn't smile. He simply pointed to the bottom of the wire transfer page, still in the judge's hand. Every transaction they claim was authorized carries a digital timestamp, cross-referenced against Mrs. Voss's location data from her phone, which they never bothered to revoke access to. She was at a charity board meeting in Tacoma at the exact minute they say she signed the offshore authorization. She wasn't even in the same city. He let the silence stretch. Check the timestamps, Your Honor. They don't lie. The judge's eyes narrowed. She turned the page slowly, studying the numbers. I sat perfectly still. My hands rested on the table. No shaking, no tears. Just the cold, steady knowledge that the gears I had set in motion 8 years earlier were finally turning. Outside, the rain kept falling, steady and relentless. Inside, the temperature in the room had dropped 10 degrees. The judge looked up from the documents. Her voice was low, measured. Counsel, this changes everything. But Marcus had already said the 3 words that mattered, and the silence that followed told me the end had finally begun. The judge leaned back in her chair. The rain outside had stopped, leaving the courtroom windows streaked and shining.
She looked at the stack of documents Marcus had placed on the bench, then at Julian and Serena. Her voice was quiet, but every word carried.
Mr. Hale, continue.
Marcus didn't raise his voice. He never did. He simply turned the page in the binder and laid out the next sheet. Your Honor, we are not asking for mercy. We are asking for the enforcement of the original trust instrument my client's husband drafted 8 years ago.
Clause 17C, I quote, "Any successor trustee or beneficiary who initiates proceedings to declare the grantor mentally incompetent or attempts to seize, transfer, or restrict access to the principal for personal benefit shall forfeit all rights to inheritance, distributions, and reimbursement of any sums previously advanced." He let the words settle. Julian's shoulders stiffened. Serena's hand flew to her throat. Marcus kept going. "We have the bank statements, every forged signature, every unauthorized wire, the $340,000 to the Cayman Shell, the $87,423.67 on the Centurion Card, the internal eviction notice, the recorded dinner where they admitted scheduling the evaluation before my client ever saw a doctor, and now the timestamps that prove Mrs. Voss was not even in the city when they claimed she authorized the offshore transfer." The judge picked up the wire confirmation again. She studied the numbers the way a surgeon studies an X-ray. Marcus placed one final document on the bench. "This is the activation notice. Mrs. Voss has formally invoked Clause 17C this morning. Effective immediately, Julian Voss and Serena Voss forfeit every penny they have taken. $1.8 million already spent must be returned in full within 30 days. The trust fund balance of $4.7 million reverts entirely to Eleanor Voss. The house remains in her name. Any attempt to appeal triggers additional penalties of $250,000 per violation." Lila stood up in the gallery. "Your Honor, this is—" "Sit down," the judge said without looking at her. Silence filled the room like cold water. I sat perfectly still. My hands rested on the table, fingers relaxed. I felt the thin gold watch on my wrist, the one that had recorded every second of their careful, smiling betrayal. No tears, no triumph shouted aloud, just the quiet click of pieces falling exactly where my husband and I had planned them to fall. The judge turned to Julian and Serena. "Do you have anything to say before I rule?" Julian opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Serena tried. Her voice cracked on the first word.
Your Honor, we were only trying to protect her. She's old. She doesn't understand.
"Lies," I said. The single word cut across the courtroom, low and clear. All lies. Marcus didn't need to add anything. The evidence spoke louder than any closing argument. The judge signed the order with a sharp stroke of her pen. The sound echoed. "Petition denied. Counterclaim granted in full. Restitution ordered. Guardianship request dismissed with prejudice. The clerk will prepare the final judgment by close of business tomorrow."
"Mr. and Mrs. Voss, you are ordered to remain in the jurisdiction until the funds are returned." She looked straight at them. "And if I see either of you in my courtroom again on any matter involving Mrs. Voss, the penalties will double." The gavel came down once. A single, final crack. It was over. I stood up slowly. Marcus closed the binder with a soft thud. We walked out together. Behind us, I heard Serena's heels scrape against the marble floor as she tried to stand. Julian's voice came out in a hoarse whisper.
"Mom, please, we can fix this. We're family."
I didn't turn around.
In the corridor outside the courtroom, I paused by the tall window. The lake in the distance caught the first break in the clouds, a thin silver line across the gray. I watched their reflections in the glass as they walked past me. Julian's shoulders slumped, Serena's perfect posture finally broken,
Lila trailing behind with her legal pad clutched like a shield that had failed. Their faces said everything. Julian looked small.
Serena's influencer smile was gone, replaced by the pale, wide-eyed stare of someone who had just watched her entire, carefully curated life evaporate into bank statements and court stamps. Lila kept her eyes on the floor, the sharp lawyer reduced to silence. I breathed in once, slow and deep. The air tasted clean. Marcus touched my elbow lightly. The wire reversal will hit their accounts by Friday. The house is yours again. The trust is intact. You won, Eleanor. I nodded. I know. 3 weeks later, I sold the lakefront house. Cash offer, no contingencies. The realtor called it a steal at $3.2 million. I didn't negotiate. I simply signed where she pointed and handed her the keys. I moved into a quiet penthouse downtown. Smaller, 2 bedrooms, a terrace overlooking the city lights instead of the water. No west wing, no guest suite. No one sliding eviction notices under my door at 2 in the morning. The restitution check arrived by courier the following Monday. $1.8 million, plus interest and penalties. I deposited it back into the trust the same afternoon. The balance read exactly $4.7 million again. Not a penny more, not a penny less. I kept the Centurion card. I cut it in half at the kitchen counter and dropped the pieces into the trash. Then I ordered a new platinum card in my name only, no secondary users. No one else's signature allowed. Julian tried to call once. The number showed up on my phone at 11:47 p.m. I let it ring. He left no message. Serena never tried. Lila sent a single email asking if we could discuss terms. I forwarded it to Marcus with 2 words. File it. I never answered any of them. Some evenings I sit on the terrace with a cup of Earl Grey, 1 sugar, and watch the city lights flicker on. The watch is still on my wrist. The red light no longer needs to blink. There is nothing left to record. I am 68 years old. I am alone, but I am not lonely. The money is mine again. The house is gone, but the freedom it bought me is worth more than any view of the lake. I watched them walk out of the courthouse. Their faces said everything. And for the first time in years, I breathed freely. If you have ever been underestimated by the people who are supposed to love you most, drop a comment below. What would you have done in my place? Let me know. And if this story stayed with you until the very last word, consider liking and sharing it with someone who needs to hear that silence can be the loudest weapon of all.